You are listening to the Joe on Joe podcast, the only podcast where Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hi, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. I am your horse host, Joe Slepsky, and I am coming to you live from beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. Woo, woo, woo! We are traveling this week, and on our show is a very, very special guest. I always say special guest. Sometimes I say very special guest, but I'm talking a bosom friend of mine from Chicago that met us out here as part of a little vacation that we're on. So if our voices are a little hoarse, it's because we've earned it very well. With me this week is special guest Stephen Hood. Steve Hood, welcome to Joe on Joe.
Thank you very much, Joe, for having me as a very special guest. I am humbled by this opportunity.
As I think you should be. Now, Steve is, I met Steve in college, which sadly was over 20 years ago, right?
We're about to have our 25th anniversary next year.
We really are. Holy cow. That's crazy. We lived on the dorms together. A little bit about Steve Hood. He is possibly the straight brightest person that I know. And that may say more about the people I hang around with than it does about Steve.
It does.
It probably does. But he is a sharp mind, and he is a witty and acerbic wit. So I was looking forward to getting him on this pod to watch some G.I. Joe and get into it so much. So, Steve, you grew up in Elgin, Illinois, correct?
I did. Beautiful Elgin, Illinois. I grew up there.
South Elgin, North Elgin, which Elgin?
This would be almost downtown Elgin, near the beautiful Fox River, about a mile away from Grand Victoria Casino, one of the stalwarts of Illinois casinos.
And so we always talk about 1983 as the big year because that's kind of when G.I. Joe launched, right? 83. And these episodes themselves, they were running in 85. But that like 81, 82, 80, 85 era, that's meat for us. You and I were 9, 10 years old at the time, right?
That's right in the wheelhouse for us.
Right in the wheelhouse. So what is your connection to G.I. Joe?
We had a vast collection of action figures.
Did you really?
And comic books.
I don't know that I knew this.
Watched most all of the episodes, probably at some point. My recollection's really fuzzy on a lot of them, surprisingly.
Sure.
But I had 3 younger brothers, so this was tailor-made for us to destroy every toy and have battles.
What do you remember?
All of these
what do you
things.
remember about the toys? What toys did you have specifically?
The Terradrome we had.
You
that
had the
was
Terradrome.
Kind of the centerpiece of the whole operation.
Terradrome was the best. You know what my favorite part of the Terradrome was? What was your favorite part of the Terradrome? First, let's deal with that.
My favorite part of the Terradrome was that you could pack virtually every figure we had into it.
True.
And from there, you could set up very intricate battle scenes every day, different ways. That was kind of the...
Also, so you had brothers to play with. The fact that it was literally a 360-degree playset, you guys could each have like a corner of the drome.
That was key because we each kind of needed our own space.
Yeah.
Any toy that didn't provide that was kind of a recipe for disaster,
Problematic.
I think. So this one was kind of tailor-made for us and probably for our parents not to separate us from killing each other.
My favorite part of the Terradrome, it had a gas station.
That's correct. It's very practical. They really thought through all the details.
It had a gas station. It wasn't like, here's an extra place to put missiles, or here's an extra place to put anti-Joe equipment, or something to, here's a brainwave scanner to kill snake eyes. Nope. Gasoline.
Which is sort of odd in the sense that I don't recall, in my play anyhow, thinking, oops, the vehicle ran out of gas.
Well,
I should have come back to the Terradrome and filled up before I proceeded on the next battle. That just didn't really happen in our battles, but if we had incorporated that,
that's the genius. Once you don't incorporate it until you get the gas pump. Now all of a sudden, trucks are running low, and you're like, hold on, before we go out, did everyone fill up their tank?
It really seemed out of place as a kid, but it makes complete sense now.
What was your what was your favorite toys? Like which like for you specifically, like what figures? Like what like so the Terradrome is a good play set, but like were there any specific people, any figures that really stood out to you?
My favorite was probably, because my brothers battled over them constantly, were Tomax and Zaymot, because they were twins, and my brothers were twins.
Fascinating.
So that was kind of their favorite thing to have, and I like to have it too. So that was kind of the source of.
Please tell me, and I know your brothers.
Constant battling.
I know your brothers, and they're great. They're great. Please tell me, at one point you punched one of them, hoping that it would hurt the other one, like Tomax and Zaymot.
There's always that hope when you see it on TV. You're very impressionable at that age.
Were they psychically linked?
And it didn't work that way, but I wouldn't say that I probably didn't try it at some point, just as an experiment. If it's on TV, it must be true.
It must be true.
In that era,
Yeah.
like today, if it's on the internet, it must be true.
Well,
it was TV in those days.
There's certain facts in life, and that's one of them. I don't think I knew that you were way into the comics when you were growing up. Do you remember any recollections about those? Any like eras or issues or?
Honestly, not too much.
Yeah.
My brothers were bigger readers of them than I was.
That's because you're illiterate.
It's part of it. It's not really fun for me since I can't read.
Yeah, but you look at.
I like pictures.
You like fun pictures.
But that only really takes you so far. The meat of the story is in the words.
Kind of want to understand what's going on.
That made it difficult to really enjoy it. So
then
I don't recall.
Your favorite issue was the silent issue that had no dialogue then.
That was definitely my favorite.
The only one where you actually got the same out of it that everyone else did.
Right. We all were on the same level on that one. Any of the others, I just lost all of the nuance on it.
Now, today, you are a father yourself.
I am. I have two sons. Max is 5 and Zach is 3 years old.
And your lovely bride, Carrie, is a good friend as well. Your kids are adorable. Do you see them, do you see introducing Joe into their life at any point? And I say that knowing that, like, now for kids, it's not really one of the more popular, action figure sets. It's more superheroes now and things like that. But do you think you'll ever introduce them to G.I. Joe or in any capacity?
We have a stash of toys in my parents' basement.
The old stuff.
Days. Old stuff from our childhood. It's intact as it can be from 40 years of play, give or take.
Yeah.
So
I like that because the phrase 40 years of play implies that it's been in continuous play for 40 years.
Right. It's been constantly played with since at least the early 80s. But whatever is left of that's not picked over by my brothers, who probably have first dibs on a lot of it, I would certainly see if their boys are interested in it. If they're not, then that's fine. But it's something that's certainly available, so why not?
You should cram it down their throats. Be like, listen, if you
insist that they play with it.
If you want to be a good American, you will enjoy G.I. Joe.
If you value what you want to make your dad proud.
Yeah.
Then you probably should play with these toys.
If you want daddy's love and daddy's respect, here's a flint.
Right.
Here's a barbecue. Here's a breaker. Have fun.
You too. These are better than your tablets. These are better than any video games. Just trust me. It seems like it might be a hard sell. But.
Well, you know what? Listen, we're in Vegas. You never know. You gamble on things. You never know what could hit. Hey, we just put money on, by the time you hear this, you'll know the outcome of this. We foolishly put money on CM Punk. Or let me record another version of this. We wisely put money on CM Punk. So,
we knew the fix was in.
And hold on, here's part 2 of that. We knew that there was no fix and that he was going to lose. So we did not put money on CM Punk.
As a first-time fighter, why would you put money on that?
Why would you? And here's part 2 of that. As a first-time fighter, he's going to come out of nowhere and win big.
Right. They want this up-and-comer to really be popular right away. So why wouldn't he win?
Okay, I think we got enough takes. So when the show airs, we'll just seamlessly make it look like we were smart with the betting line.
Right. We're going to win plus 350 on CM Punk, at least.
I like it. Now, we are going to start today's episode, and it is actually a ripping yarn. It is a lot of fun, and it deals with topics and issues that 100% resonate today. Cobra has taken over an oil field, and the Joe's got to protect it.
Okay.
So it's all Middle East stuff. There's no shenanigans. There's no psychic. Although, yeah, take that back. There's a little bit of a weird shenanigan moment, but they reference. We'll get to it. You'll see what I'm saying, dear listeners. So I am so excited to get into today's episode. It is entitled Cobra Soundwaves. All right, we're just going to get into it. I got some issues with the title. It's a great episode, but the title's terrible. It
doesn't really reflect the episode?
It does and it doesn't. There's so much more to it.
Okay.
We're going to get into it. So, readers, you can find me. First of all, thank you for listening. And you can always find me on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook at JoeOnJoePod. You can send me an email to joeandjoepod@gmail.com. If you're a listener out there and you want to be on the show, you want to be a guest on the show, watch an episode with me, we will make it happen. It will be delightful. We have started Instagramming. I'm Instagramming the G.I. Joe Impel trading card set. We're going to get through all the episodes and all the issues of the trading card set eventually. So we're doing one a day. If you notice, I've taken a couple days off because, frankly, I'm on vacation with my good friend Stephen Paul Hood. Without further ado, let's get into Cobra Soundwaves.
Okay, and this is the moment when I jump in my editorial mode and say, dear listeners, I am sorry. The rest of the audio that you're going to hear is severely jacked up. I was so excited on my vacation that I think a plug came out of my microphone. So my audio was completely lost. And Steve's audio is great because Steve is amazing. And I was able to salvage some of what I was saying based off of Steve's audio. You could kind of hear me in the background. So I did my best to clean it up and amplify it up. And we're going to give it a shot and we're going to give it a listen. Hopefully it's not too obnoxious, and I hope you guys forgive me for this. But I didn't want to let a whole episode go by that we recorded with Steve because he was such a great trooper. And I love having him on. So thank you, dear listener. Thank you, Steve Hood. And Yo Joe.
All right, so, every episode people are always talking about how iconic the song is. Does it have any special meaning for you?
I think for me it's a song that you hear it right away, and I had honestly forgotten what the song even sounded like. Yeah. But I remember that this song was a rush to the TV time for several years.
So what I'm excited about, and here's a little tease. I'm having a Joe and Joe the podcast is getting a new theme song, and it's apparently very similar to this. I'm so excited. So this is a tease because I don't think it'll be on this episode yet, and if it is ready by then, I'll wait until after this episode. But I'm so excited. So we're gonna have a theme song for the podcast that's very similar to the Joe's theme song. I haven't even heard it yet as of this recording.
It's about to drop.
So we got the episode called Cobra Soundwaves, written by Ted Peterson. It's in the Middle East. We've got a lot of people on camels, and right away you jump right into the action. The first thing you see is there's a gentleman on a camel with an eye patch. So I'm assuming it's Major Blood. Do you remember Major Blood?
I remember that voice. The rest, I don't really remember any of the details about Major Blood.
He's kind of a little bit like Boba Fett.
Okay.
So Major Blood's riding a couple camels, and overhead we got some Sky Strikers, and Sky Strikers are being followed by Gung Ho, and there's Ace. Which further, by the way, Ace is a straight up baller in this episode.
Oh really?
Oh yeah, he's awesome in this episode. And we start with just a roaring dogfight. Gung Ho's piloting, Ace is piloting. I always think it's a good sign for a good episode of G.I. Joe when it jumps right into the action, Like a lot of times if they do a lot of like setup of random new characters, you're like, I don't care about any of that. Give me some action,
There's only a limited amount of time, and those typically were the slowest episodes.
Did you hear that sound right there? That was Star Wars TIE Fighters. The sound effects on it. The sound of the rattlers. They use the sound of TIE Fighters from Star Wars: A New Hope, which happened back then. I mean, there's a lot of sometimes like laser blasts, sound of Star Wars or whatever. But that sound was 100% TIE Fighters screaming by. So what we're learning here is Wild Weasel and his Rattler Squadron, they're fighting the Joes, but they're actually kind of like goading them into closer to Cobra's desert base. Cobra Commander is on a device that's shooting sound waves. And the sound waves are shaking apart the planes. Roadblock was the third pilot, so it's Gung Ho, Roadblock, and Ace. And their Sky Strikers completely getting shaken apart. Steve, you were an engineering major in college.
I was a chemistry major, actually, but I started out as a chemical engineer and ended up finishing as a chemistry major. But
do you think there are sound waves that could do something like that?
This seems a bit implausible to me.
Okay. Well, the Joes abandoned ships safely enough, but now they're on the ground and they're getting chased by Cobra Claws. Gung Ho just made a great move. He threw a bunch of sand in the face of a Cobra soldier that was finding a claw.
Directly into his face on one throw.
Now, these claws, that's a move! Steve, explain what you just saw. What did Ace just do?
I think that's called the Whizzer. I'm not sure exactly what.
You're right, it's a wrestling move. He jumped over the claw, grabbed the guy's ankles, and ripped him out of the claw from behind. I think that is called a Whizzer.
It definitely required superhuman strength. There's no doubt.
So these guys are captured in the net, and they're being taken back to the Cobra base. Now, Destro's upset because Cobra Commander revealed Destro's newest weapon being that giant sound cannon, right, that shook apart their plane.
Underestimate their ingenuity.
These early Joe's episodes are, there's always a good, like, Destro has a gag. Destro has a new weapon, and Destro has a this, and Cobra's in their remote base, and, so this is really strong with that. But this, right now, what we're seeing is where I think this episode really kicks it up a notch and gets really great. It's going straight for what the time would have been the recently finished gas crisis. Cobra Commander's saying, there's all these oil fields in this, they're in a generic Middle Eastern nation, right? And Cobra Commander's saying, we're going to take over all these oil fields, and we're going to, that's our plan. We're going to use this sound cannon to protect us, and we're going to control this specific flow of oil.
Any word from Ace yet?
Cut to the Joes. We got Flint and Scarlet and Wild Bill, and Airborne comes strolling. And Airborne, who was featured prominently a couple episodes ago. They're there in the Middle East, in whatever nation this is. They're there to protect the guy who owns the oil fields. And here's another trope that also was heavily apparent in the early episodes. The Joes that were captured are now in a pit that Cobra Commander is going to have them fight to the death, kind of a thing. They do that a lot. I don't know if you remember any of that. But there was a lot of fighting to the death.
Thinking back, there's a lot of gladiator elements to it.
A lot of gladiator elements to it. Did you just see that great phone?
That was very futuristic for its time, wasn't it?
A cordless snake that is actually a phone, and he holds it up to his head. He doesn't even say hi, though. It's that trope of, like, the phone rings, you pick it up, and you just go, yeah, done. Like, you never say, hello, this is Cobra Commander. Like, it's his Cobra phone.
No introduction needed.
So a gigantic robotic crab comes out of the sand and is now attacking the Joes. Roadblock hurls a boulder at it, can't stop it. And we're going to go into commercial being menaced by a giant killer crab in this tournament of death.
G.I. Joe will return after these messages.
Today's Filecard Feature is on Cobra's Master of Mind Control, Dr. Mindbender. His file name is unknown. His primary military specialty is genetic engineer, and his secondary military specialty is orthodontist. The man known as Dr. Mindbender was once a timid yet kind orthodontist who experimented with electric brainwave stimulation as an alternative pain deterrent to anesthesia. Using himself as a test subject, he inadvertently silenced his brain's ability to decipher wrong from right, robbing him of his inhibitions and in the process creating the mad scientist known as Dr. Mindbender. Free of any fear of consequences, he began to experiment with mind control and quickly came to the attention of Cobra,
who'd heard of his exploits through the criminal underground. He decided that he'd use, as means of showing Cobra his capabilities, his latest experiments, the Battle Android Troopers. He pitted them against a new group of G.I. Joe recruits led by Lady J, but was defeated. The Baroness and Destro, who oversaw the test, however, were impressed with his genius and admitted him into Cobra. Once he was a part of the ruthless terrorist organization, Dr. Mindbender quickly approached Cobra Commander with a bold experiment. He intended to raid the tombs of history's greatest warriors, extract DNA from them, and create a single powerful ultimate soldier from their combined abilities into a clone body he'd prepared. Dun dun dun. Serpentor. Quote, Dr. Mindbender doesn't think he's deluded. He feels he used to be. Now that he's seen the light, or the dark if you will, he feels it's his personal mission to bring the miracle of thought control to each and every one of you. Dr. Mindbender is certainly known for a lot of things, mind control and creating Serpentor, but I think what most G.I. Joe fans remember from growing up is he had one of the most outlandish outfits of all time. Completely bare-chested, with just a metal suspenders, adorned with a blue cape with Cobra epaulettes holding it up, a bald head with a monocle, and one of those twirly, twisty mustaches. He wore purple and blue and spoke with a thick Eastern European accent, and he was an orthodontist. All of those things combine to make him amazing. He was such a great addition. He's not yet shown up in the episodes that we're watching, but when he does, he is just completely crazy to the nth degree, and he brings a huge spark to the Cobra battles. I love Dr. Mindbender. So here's to Dr. Mindbender, original name unknown. We salute you.
Now back to G.I. Joe.
So the Joes are cornered by this giant crab in this arena of death. Steve, have you ever been in an arena of death?
Nothing like this. This looks extremely harrowing. A crab this size, it could probably kill a man. Or hundreds of men.
There's a couple of creepy Crimson Guardsmen who are just standing there watching it all, chuckling.
They really find this humorous, but it's a serious matter.
I do want to point out that they've got both Gung Ho and Roadblock, two of the favorites. And you factor in, you've got Wild Bill in this episode too. I have a theory about Wild Bill and Cutter. They are like the Mary Sues, I guess you'd say, these days of G.I. Joe, where they're awesome. And they just show up to save the day, and that's all they ever do. They don't have any problems. Whenever they're involved, it's just up, positive, positive, positive.
We have one job for you. Just do that one job.
Do you remember Wild Bill? He flew the dragonfly, the cowboy hat.
I don't remember Wild Bill.
Scene, and he just used a Texan, so he's just like, yeehaw! You know, like he was always, it's a fun character for a cartoon, right? But honest to God, every time he shows up in the show, it's not like Wild Bill shows up and things go wrong. It's Wild Bill shows up and things get awesome.
Sometimes you have to call in the wolf. Is that
he's the wolf?
Really how it went most episodes?
Bill is totally the wolf. He's the wolf of the air. And then Cutter, who drives the hovercraft, whenever Cutter shows up, everything goes great. So he's the wolf of the ocean.
That's a tough combination to beat, I think. That's probably why every episode went so well.
Yeah. So Ace is the superstar of this episode. He is like taking charge in a way that I never imagined Ace. Like I never played with Ace. Like I had him, and he would fly the Sky Striker, but that would be it. He was like a shuttle pilot, basically. He's a superstar in this episode.
This was his best episode?
I think so far. Definitely so far. He's super handsome, first of all. He then also comes up with a plan to have Gung Ho distract the killer crab. Look at that flying two-man kick he did.
He can leap extremely high, or
he's like Ace is like a superhero Gung Ho in this episode. Fantastic.
So this is not par for the course for Ace. This is breaking new ground.
Usually Ace, I mean, definitely in the comics, Ace never got this much love. I mean, Ace was the pilot.
Just fly the plane, Ace. Don't ask questions.
Listen, Ace, you're good at what you do.
But
that is disrespect.
Someone has to be the pilot.
Someone's got to be.
And only the pilot.
And only the pilot.
What about you? Move! I'll be right behind you.
Yeah, so check this out. He's just the best. So he shoots the ceiling, which crushes crushes the crab, and they blow a hole through the wall, and they escape while they cause a cave-in.
A lot of rocks fell that weren't there initially. That's even more of a superhero move, I think.
Superhero move. That's Wild Bill right there. He's sitting in the dragonfly.
Is he intentionally made to look like Richard Petty?
Yes. Yes, he is.
Rhetorical question.
What was Petty's nickname?
The King.
The King, yeah. The King, Richard Petty, absolutely. Oh, look at that. Cobra Commander, I love it. Cobra Commander, for no reason, takes these guys captured prisoner. For no reason, has them in a gladiator match with the giant crab, and then he turns to a random Crimson Guardsman and says, "It's your fault."
That makes sense.
It totally makes sense. Oh, so Gung Ho just pulled the sneak attack.
While they're talking about propaganda.
Yep. And the Roadblock, see, here's the deal. Roadblock and Gung Ho are awesome. And now you add in this, we'll call him like Superhero Ace in this episode.
This is an unstoppable force.
These three, I want to see these three get a spin-off cartoon. For real. They're awesome together. This is a great moment. Watch this. Ace flips a coin. Yeah. Gung Ho. So they come across a fork in the road in the caves. And Ace is like, let's flip a coin. And Gung Ho,
Overruled.
a jarhead, is just like, screw that. We're going. One thing I do wish I would have seen, though, is what was in the left tunnel. Like,
We never get to know this.
like Cobra Commander's harem. Like, it's just
A totally missed opportunity.
so did G.I. Joe, so spoiler alert, they're not going to die a horrible death. But, like, what was in that left tunnel? Like, was it just the best? Like, they're like, it's Willy Wonka's chocolate factory.
What did he know? Why was he so sure they needed to go right?
Right?
Or does he just go right?
Right, because he's Gung Ho.
And you don't flip coins and decide. You just go right.
Yep. So the guys do hit a dead end, though, and so they're a little perplexed on how to get out. Meanwhile, before this, it cut away to the Cobra Rattlers are attacking the oil field that the Joes are there to protect. So we're having some like Iraq war, and this is dropping in '85, so it's years before we ever went to like '91 was it when the first Iraq war?
Right.
Years before we got involved in that stuff. Ace has the brilliant idea to overload their weapons, the laser guns, and it blows a hole in the ground, which then they're going to use to try to find a river that's flowing underneath it. But he accidentally caused a cave in, so the guys have to jump down this black cavern without knowing how they're going to land. Steve,
It seems pretty treacherous.
they might die. And we're going to go into the break.
He'll fight for freedom wherever there's trouble. G.I. Joe is there. G.I. Joe, American hero. G.I. Joe is there.
Enemy blockade! Send in the G.I. Joe motorized battle tank!
You can make it go left, right, forwards, and backwards. The G.I. Joe battle tank.
Smash the blockade! What a tank!
Each sold separately. The G.I. Joe motorized battle tank comes with G.I. Joe. Batteries not included from Hasbro. Now, back to G.I. Joe.
One of the tenets of their commercial breaks is always falling. Gravity plays a huge part in G.I. Joe. All the commercials are always people falling, slamming into buildings, slamming into mountains. Something to do with you're rushing headlong at something. Which why earlier when we had the crab and the commercial break was the crab, like kind of slowly menacing them, that was actually a nice change of pace.
That's a rare occasion that a commercial break comes on a...
Yeah, because it wasn't like the crab shows up and then a hole opens and they all fall down a hole. Like it's just here's the slow menace of this giant mechanical crab. So this one, they're falling into the black hole. The guys over at the oil field, the guys are fighting the Rattlers, but they don't know where everyone's at because Scarlet and Wild Bill never came back with the guys. The guys are missing. The Joes are severely short-staffed and they don't know what to do.
They seem to be flowing down a river of sewage,
That river,
but they're completely clean. It looks fine now.
I think we found our way
it
out.
is disgusting, that river. I'm assuming it's just oil effluvia.
They must have known they were going to the right place. The light appeared minutes later.
So gross. They did escape, though, so they were very smart. So, again, Gung-Ho's the winner. Winner, Gung-Ho dinner. And he finds a way out. So the helicopter shows up, the Dragonfly, with Wild Bill and Scarlet. And they all realize that the oil fields are under attack, so they're going to need some help. Again, see Ace leading the charge here?
Again, leading the charge from quite afar, but they're going to cover this distance in probably a matter of minutes.
If you, I don't know if you heard it because I was yammering over it. And Ace did not say Yo Joe. Or if he did,
It was mangled this time.
JoJo.
I'm sure it was a JoJo.
Battle cries, Yo Joe. I'm pretty sure Ace just said
This time it was JoJo.
JoJo.
That is a different connotation than Yo-Jo.
I will say this too. The animation on this specific episode is just fantastic. The airplanes look really sharp. Like there's great shadows on them. And you not having seen them in a few years, whatever. There's some episodes are a little iffy. You know, like they're a little like you can tell they're just not as.
Quality was
It was a different animation house.
really spotty sometimes.
This episode looks great, and I truly mean that.
This was drawn much better than some of the other episodes with plain fight scenes.
So we've got some serious dogfighting going on. Wild Bill saving the day. The Sky Strikers are knocking the Rattlers out of the sky. There's a lot of oil on fire, though, and knowing how long those oil fields actually burned, I don't know how much good the Joes are doing.
Right. This seems to leave quite a mess
For a
behind,
bunch of
but
latecomers.
Breaker, and see that's airborne. Now listen to that. Listen to what he says.
What's with airborne? Shell shock?
No, he's got some kind of ESP, or so his file says.
Yeah. Okay. There was a previous episode where Airborne, his little brother, actually also had ESP, and there was a whole thing about people having mental powers. It was a little silly for G.I. Joe. But what's great, what I love about that scene is Flint's skeptical about it, right?
he seemed very skeptical of the whole thing.
And you, as a toy collector, you would have had those file cards, right? We do a file card spotlight every episode of the show.
Okay.
And we kind of, dig into characters. We actually did one for Airborne already. But I love that because if you're at home, he references the file and you go, oh, I have his file card.
So you can refer to that and it makes complete sense.
Exactly. Like, I think that's so cool. Yeah, I'm a fan. I really think that's pretty neat.
That was interactive in 1983, 84, and 85.
So the Joes now, they're heading back to the Cobra base, which is, on a giant snake mountain. And Scarlet and Gung-Ho, they took that same route they came out on, the river. And they realized, hey, that river probably runs underneath this Cobra temple. So let's sneak in that way while our Joes attack from above. We're going to sneak in and try to cause some havoc.
A flawless plan. Or not.
So Cobra Commander and Destro, they're setting up his Soundwave machine. And he starts shooting the sound waves, and then the sound waves are going to start shaking apart the airplanes just like last time, which, okay, the Joes know this, so they're presumably trying to plan for it, right? But Cobra Commander, always his own worst enemy. So
They've escaped just in time.
they go out of the way. CC changes into his silver face mask, and he moves Destro out of the way, and he moves... You see that?
It seems like a misplay.
He moves the machine too close to the edge of the cliff, so now we all know what's going to happen is...
I'm not sure, but...
Which can't be shaken apart from the sound waves.
He seems to be in trouble on this one.
Right. So, the weapon's useless against the gliders, and the gliders start shooting the platform, which the thing is sitting on, and sure enough, it all collapses, right?
Lo and behold.
So the sound machine is not the Miami sound machine.
Not any longer.
The sound machine is now falls into the ravine. The Cobra Commander's dangling from the thing. So a couple things. One, God darn, Cobra Commander, why do you always foil all your plans?
His own worst enemy again?
Why do you got to be a jerk? But I will say this too. I'm going to point a finger at Destro too. You're the armament designer. If you know having that sound thing too far out on that platform could be unstable, why would you allow it to be built that way?
It can be driven off a cliff at any time. That seems like a small risk, but...
I'm pointing a strong finger at Destro on this one. A real strong finger. Because Destro, you never should have let that thing even be able to extend that far out if then it was going to be as unstable as it obviously was. That's on Destro. That's 100%. It's 100% on Destro, Steve.
Unless these are simply built in a day's work, then that seems a little bit of a fool's errand to keep it on the edge of a cliff.
So Scarlet and Gung Ho, they've snuck in, and they're going to rescue the Sheik, which Destro and Cobra Commander were holding on to. And the Sheik jumps. He's so angry about what they were doing to his country. He jumps on the helicopter that they're using to escape. Destro, in a pimp move, just kicks him off this helicopter. This guy's straight falling to his death. Scarlet shoots, look at that, a boomerang arrow. A boomerang crossbow bolt.
Not typically seen in nature.
Wow. It hoops around the falling Sheik.
She's quite a shot.
Gung Ho and Wild Bill haul him up the side of the mountain to save the day. How great was that?
In a matter of 1 minute, he went from certain death to saved.
It's so good. It's so good. So now we're going to have our the denouement of the episode. They're surrounding a table and they're having a nice meal and stuff, and they're going to wrap it up. So as we wrap this story up, this is where I go. It's called Cobra Soundwaves. That was a very minor part of this episode. This is a good episode with a lot of fun character stuff and a real threat, like a serious threat. Oh, by the way, the gag at the end is that they didn't eat the Sheik's chef's food. Roadblock and Wild Bill cooked up barbecue and home cooking from back in the U.S. and everything looks delightful.
And they're being cooled with an enormous leaf.
I really like this episode, Steve. It seems weird that it's called Cobra Soundwaves. Like
it doesn't really describe the episode.
It's not like that was then what the weapon they were using.
There is a Cobra Soundwave, but
they're not. That's not
really a lot more going on here than that.
They're all hostage. It might as well be called Cobra Machine Gun.
Right.
As much as it really comes into play.
It's just as relevant, I think.
But it's a good filler episode of like the Joes have a mission to protect this guy's oil fields, and Cobra gets in the way, and there's some great character stuff in it. So what did you think, my friend?
This brings back a few memories for me. I can't recall this episode specifically, but a lot of these themes, obviously, like you say, they occurred every single episode, and it makes me think of all the different arcs of each episode and how similar they probably really were, ironically. Granted, it's packaged for 9 to 12-year-old boys, but or 41-year-old men, and just how rote the whole pattern is of each episode.
Did you like it, though?
I surprisingly liked it more than I thought I would, to tell you the truth.
Good.
This is more action than I thought. I was expecting more, maybe not character development per se, but a lot of...
Lots of, you were expecting it to be more thematically like an episode of Little House on the Prairie.
Perhaps. Maybe more banter between the characters that, could be fodder later for, an internet video or something like that, but
Sure.
There's a lot of different catchphrases.
Lots of catchphrases. Apparently, Ace likes to say JoJo.
JoJo was newly introduced, probably in this episode, perhaps. I don't know if you've...
That's why Ace didn't become like a leading star. They were priming him with this episode because they were like, "You got it, baby. You got everything you need." Did you just say JoJo?
That was the beginning of the end for Ace.
Ace. This is a delight. I'm very happy that we did this. Steve Hood.
I am as well. This was a treat.
Coming to you live from the Mandalay Bay Hotel Casino in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. I bid you sign off. Thank you so much for being your guest.
Thank you, my friend.
And now you Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.